narrative tends to be associated with what? The desert. No boundaries there. It's a kind of openness. Sayyidina Musa, Sayyidina Isa, Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, no strangers to the desert. There's something authentically prophetic about the place where there is only the ground and the horizon and the sky. In the modern world, you don't see any of those things too often. So a situation of challenge arises, but the believer is the one who is of good cheer. Because the believer is the one who thinks that despite the essential darkness of the message of modernity, which is we live and we die and only Dahr destroys us, the black pessimism of atheism with its doctrine of universal death and destruction, despite the extreme pessimism of the psychologists who insist that deep down what we are is a mass of wild animalistic impulses, the believer takes a different view and a more optimistic view. He doesn't know what the future holds, although he looks forward to the time of Al-Imam al-Mahdi. But in this world, he knows that still Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is at work as he always was. We do not have the kind of aqidah that allows Allah to be a kind of co-author of creation. And that's another feature of the Qur'an. Allah is ala kulli shay'in qadir. Everything is a manifestation of his direct and unmediated will and act. And we try to see in everything that he does beauty and appropriateness. Sometimes, and increasingly nowadays, in the jalal rather than in the jamal. But the prophetic way of looking at the world is always one of noticing the beauty and of striving to create beauty. The Muslim is the one who loves to surround himself with beautiful things, who loves to surround himself with beautiful sounds, who loves to surround himself with beautiful people. That's just part of Allah Jameel, Yuhibbul Jamal. Allah is beautiful and he loves beauty. This is part of following the fitrah and the sunnah, part of the primordiality of the religion, and the beauty of the Kaaba, the beauty of the Alastu bi Rabbikum, the day of Am I not your Lord. Beauty is one of the watchwords of the Muslim who understands where he is. The ugliest dimensions of secular atheistic culture, the egotism of ghetto culture, for instance, will be infinitely repulsive to him. Instead, wherever there is beauty, symmetry, humility, and opposition to the nafs, there will be the Muslim. So this will be one of the polarities that we will see in the years to come. Some Muslims who have been, as it were, blinded by the headlights of the modern world as it steams towards us and really losing the plot and sometimes cultivating ugliness themselves. Terrorism, just another sign of that. It's qabih, it's not jameel, it's ugly, it's not beautiful. But there will always be, as we are told, a community that upholds the truth. وَالْخَيْرُ فِيَّ وَفِي أُمَّتِي إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. This is a sound hadith. Goodness is in me and in my community until the day of judgment. He says, in me and in my community. And the fiyya, the first part, has many meanings, some of which are subject to the ikhtilaf, the difference of opinions of the ulama as to the way in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ is amongst us. And we respect the ulama and their differences there. But clearly one way in which he is amongst us is through the sunnah and this model of how we are to behave. The boundaries that are forever set to our right to re-edit ourselves and to distort ourselves, so that potentially not only do we distort ourselves in our art, but we distort ourselves in our physical form. Not just superficially, increasingly common practices such as self-mutilation, body piercing, tattoos, wild forms of dress, but actually the basic human substrate of our being, potentially the subject of emendation and radical change. We will be the ones who, more than anyone else, although there will be some others, say, absolutely not. We'd rather live to be 50, 60, 70, 80 in a way that is still ahsani taqweem and knowing what we are and where we're going, than to live to be 1,000 just drifting from one abstract pleasure to the next in a meaningless world of gratification and utilitarian values. We will make that claim. Probably we will also have made it already, looking at the modern world as it has begun, and it's only just begun, we would say basically we preferred the age of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the age of docklands and post-modernity. It's better to live to be 30 or 40, to know exactly what you are, than to live to be 80 being not quite sure. The modern world has given us a lot of comfort, but it has taken away something which is much more important than comfort, which is meaning. That's the exchange that human beings have made through 400 years of incredibly painful and bloody transformations in Europe, and we would say that's a bad deal, a bad exchange. We think humanity was mistaken. We don't accept it. I'd rather die of smallpox at 35, believing in Allah and His Messenger and having hope in the next world and the fact to be meaningful and to be consoling to my relatives, than to die drugged up in some geriatric ward at 80 or 90 being kind of puzzled about what that was all about. It was weird, but nobody told me what any of it meant. We would, by and large, say, yeah, we challenge the modern world to that extent. So the question then poses itself as a rather stark one. Necessarily, we are to be radical dissidents. We simply don't buy into the basic assumptions of the modern world. We don't think it's made people better. We don't think it's improved our cultural life. We certainly don't think it's improved people's spiritual life or moral life. We don't think that it has succeeded even on its own terms. That is by way of a kind of negative attitude, and all too often we are too negative, too defensive. People have a go at us, we try to explain something. But I think that if we are to succeed and to prosper, we need to change that. Sometimes, of course, we do need to defend ourselves. We need to defend the Sunnah. We need to defend the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his honour more than we would defend our own. But at the same time, we also need to offer our way as a oasis, as an alternative, as a kind of green zone where there is still nature in an increasingly sterile world of steel, environmental degradation, and do-it-yourself morality. We have to offer Islam not geographically any longer as a Dar al-Islam, which is a refuge, al-Penah, from surrounding barbarism, because the enemy is within now. We can't point to any Muslim country and say, there is the alternative. Instead, we need to point to what Islam does for individuals, and sometimes for mosque communities, and sometimes for tariqah communities, and to say, there is an alternative, a lived alternative that actually works. And this is why we don't say that Islam is an ideology. Anybody who says Islam is an ideology has never bothered to pick up a dictionary and look up to the word to see what it is. An ideology is a man-made, manufactured set of ideas that then shapes life. Islam doesn't do that. Islam takes its point of departure not from a set of abstract ideas, but from the life of an individual. What is Islam without the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? There would be no Quran, there was no heart on which it could descend. What would be the Sharia and the fiqh without Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Inconceivable. He is absolutely the linchpin of the religion, and it is in his practicality, his amal, that everything else finds its grounding. So that's not ideology, that's the opposite of ideology. It's not human beings being shaped by ideas, it's ideas flowing from the fact of a perfected human being. And this has always been very important in our culture, something that we must not let go of. An important dimension of the Sunnah is following the rijal, the people, the men. We don't take knowledge from books. To study a hadith in a book is just not valid. This is what the ulama call wijada. You find a hadith in a book and then you narrate it, or you think you've got it. You can't do that. That's the lowest of the 9 degrees of hadith narration. Instead, you take your hadith with its isnad from a teacher who is authorized to teach that hadith and who can answer any questions you might have about it. Then you can authentically practice it. Unfortunately, with the rise of print media and now with the rise of the internet, sometimes we have more access to a plastic shape sitting on our desk than we do to a real representative who actually shows in his life what the Sunnah can be. A computer can give you information. It can't follow the Sunnah. It's just the same machine that can dish up obscenity or information